Hey guys, welcome back to another fun conversation with your favorite tech girl, aka me. And in today's video, we're going to be covering something that you've asked me in the previous video, which is covering my experience of getting into a company, what was the process like, and so on. So here we go. But actually, before we do, quick introductions. Hi, my name is Aarushi. I have about 7 years of experience building tech products. In these 7 years, I've worked as a developer, as a marketer, as a product manager, and now as a content creator as well. So in this channel, I bring to you all of my experiences and try to be the mentor that I never had for you. So we talk about all things tech, product, and general career adulting on this one. And if that's something that you're looking out for, then please subscribe and like this video, and I'll see you in all the other content that I've done. And please comment on the section below and tell me what else do you want me to talk about. Now coming to the topic at hand. What was my experience like? How are FANG interviews? And by the way, I do have a job at Amazon now, but during the process I applied at Uber, Yelp, Dropbox, a lot of companies like that. And so my experience, what I'm going to be talking today about, is not going to be Amazon specific, but overall what all of these big tech companies, what is their process like, what's the usual expectation that you should have. I will do another video on Amazon, but maybe next week or a little later. This one is a more generic video. So I hope this helps you, and let's get started. So now step number one, actually step number 0 is applying to the role, which I did via a referral, and this referral I got through someone who I just reached out to on LinkedIn. It was just a cold reach out. So guys, it works, and I will do another video on that one, that experience, how it went about and what were my learnings, if you comment on the section below and tell me that you want to hear about it. So now that step 0 aside, step 1 is the recruiter's call. Now what is a recruiter's call? The recruiter's call is basically an HR person, a recruiter in the company who's trying to see 3 things. Number 1, are you a right fit for the role? Number 2, are you a right fit for the job? And number 3, do you like the company enough to really go through the entire process? So that's something that they're going to be checking. Now before I talk to you, about how do you prepare for all of these things, a few things to be careful about before they call as well. So see, a couple of things, like in my case, I was in Dubai and I was applying to a company in Canada. I would recommend that you get a local number. So I got a Canadian number. I've linked to a product below, an app below, where you can simply get a number. You can get it for free for a couple of days, and then if it's for longer, you will have to pay some nominal amount. But I think it's so much worth it, because the recruiter, they are sitting in a geography and they're expecting you to be, let's say I was in Dubai, but they were expecting me to be in Canada. Now, if I would have given them a Dubai number, they would have definitely called me. That's not a problem. But the thing is, by default, they expect that the candidate will be in a certain geography. Now, maybe they will miss it. They'll try to call, the number wouldn't go, and then, they'll just, that's it. You'll just lose your chance because you gave a number of a different country. And it's not that they were not okay with that country, it's just that they didn't realize it was a different number, right? So don't make that rookie mistake. Just give them a local number so that mistake is avoided. Give your right email. Make sure there's no typos in your resume with the email and the mobile number. So that's like a very rookie mistake. So the next thing is a time difference, which you have to be cautious about. Now, like for example, in my case, I was in Dubai and applying for a company in Canada. The recruiter call, when it finally happened, it happened for me at, I think, 12 o'clock in the night. I was already asleep and the phone rang. So you have to be careful that you keep your phone on the ringer mode, and you might get a phone call later in the night. So, expect that and be a bit prepared. Keep a bottle of water handy or something. But yeah, that's something that you have to be careful about and just be on your toes about. Coming to the recruiter call in itself, how do you prepare for it? Now, the usual process that I follow before I give my tips about anything is to understand your interviewer. Now, the recruiter over here, what is his job? What is he trying to fulfill with this particular call? What he's trying to understand is, 1, are you a good candidate for the job description? 2, are you a good candidate for that company? 3, would you really go through the interview process? Would you go the mile? Do you really like the company, right? So these are the 3 things that they want to understand. How would they understand that? Let's start with the first thing. Are you a good fit for that role? Now, you already know the JD, and in my case, also in Amazon's case, I saw the JD, and there were a couple of terms that stood out for me. The terms that stood out for me were things like bidding, things like ranking algorithm, like something about the algorithms that I could have worked on. So it felt like they wanted to talk to me or or hire someone who had worked on algorithms before. And a few other things that struck out for me was the fact that they wanted someone with ads experience. So I think these 2-3 things that stuck out for me a lot. And I knew whenever I spoke to a recruiter, I had to bring out my ads experience and tell them that I had worked on algorithms and so on. So that is something that you should, spend at least half an hour or an hour just understanding the JD, just looking at the key terms that are in it. Because for the recruiter, see, a recruiter is not someone who works in that role, so they don't understand it in depth. What they are given is their job description, and that's what they have to work with, right? So of course they will refer to the terms there and hire as per that, or interview as per that. So make sure when you talk to them about your previous experience, you use some of those terms so that they understand that you have the most relevant experience. Obviously don't lie through your nose, but just use the right terms, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing, which is, are you a right fit for that organization? Now mind you, maybe not in this experience, but there have been previous experiences where I have been rejected from the recruiter round, and the main reason that came out was the second thing, where they thought I was not a good fit for the company. Now why does that happen? You might have a good experience, relevant experience, but they maybe felt you were not confident enough while talking to them, or maybe they just didn't like the way you were speaking and so on, where maybe you were seeming a bit snooty and the company was people who were more likable, or that you were not seeming confident enough. It could be anything of those any of those things. So just make sure that you appear someone who's likable, friendly, and confident when you're having that conversation with the recruiter. Now how do I make sure that I appear friendly, not snooty and all of that? Maybe speak it out to yourself, maybe record yourself giving your introduction, and record yourself like this in a video and just see how you're appearing and so on. Or you can actually speak to your friend and ask them to give you feedback. You definitely need to hear it so that you understand how you're appearing. So that's very important. Make sure that you have worked on your pitch and the way you're delivering it. Comes the third thing now. Are you someone who's really interested in the organization? Would you go the extra mile? Would you go the entire interview process? Because mind you, it's long, very long. But anyway, so are you someone who is truly interested in this profile? Now that's something which again you need to figure out in your pitch. Show the enthusiasm. They will ask you, mostly every recruiter will ask you, why this company? I was asked why Amazon, why Yelp, why all of those companies, and obviously I had to do my research, show why that role and that organization and that geography was a right fit for me. At least I put it in these three things: why the geography shift, why the company shift, and why the role shift. So it goes from macro, which is geography, then a little smaller company, and then the role. So that's how I used to do it. You put your own structure to it, but you can use mine as well. So that's the three things that you have to answer for the recruiter. Now that's step one of the interview process, making sure you get the recruiter round done. And if you follow these things that I've told you, I think you will. Now coming to the second piece, which is the hiring managers round, or it may or may not be with the hiring manager, but before this round happens, it's like most of the big tech companies would do one round with an initial screening round, and then they'll have a panel. So the initial screening round is just with one interviewer. Now before this happens, there are a few steps that happen in between, which is basically a recruiter telling you if they liked you or not. Once they do that, you'll have a separate email with someone who will manage the interview, the screening interview for you. So they'll take your slots, ask the interviewer for the slots, and figure out whatever works. And finally, before you have your interview with the screening, before you have your screening round interview, you will definitely get an email from the recruiter telling you about what the interview would be, what to expect, what they will expect, what is the pricing criteria, and so on. So most of these big companies, I really loved this about the processes that I had, and actually Amazon was the one that had the best interview experience for me, because they were very clear with the timelines. They helped me understand what they expect, and they gave me all the material, all the relevant material there was to understand the peculiarities of Amazon's interview process. But having said that, other companies like Yelp, Uber, etc., they were also pretty on point. They gave me an understanding of what was expected in the screening round, and who would be taking it, and would it be a product sense, a product thinking, or a leadership principle kind of round in case of Amazon. So they gave me a good understanding of what it would be about. So you'll usually get that. Just like to give you an understanding of what I've understood so far is that Amazon is different. They have 16 leadership principles on which they test you, and which they mostly ask you to convey stories about them. I'll cover Amazon in another video, so I'm not getting into that. But most other companies, these rounds, the initial screening round was also like any other product round. So it could be a mix of product analytics, product sense, product thinking, like one of those product interview rounds that are usually there. And you can check them out. I have done previous videos on these interviews. It's linked on the section above. So it's one of these types of questions that you could get. So prepare yourself with the basic usual product questions. So that happens in the screening round, which you will probably coordinate with the recruiter and finally come to a date for. Here I would recommend that two things. One, of course, I've linked to the entire chain of videos that I have made above, the entire playlist on what are the different types of product management interview. Make sure that you're prepared with your structure and all of them. Now, I have said this countless times before, there's no need to learn a structure, but you should understand the logic behind that structure. If for a particular structure we have gone with Porter's 5 forces, or we've gone with pros and cons, then understand why we have done that and probably build your own model around it. But anyway, that you're able to figure out a structure, or you've practiced the structure long and hard enough before you go into these interviews. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is a very special tip from me, that please my friend, research about your interviewer. The good thing that these big tech companies do is tell you who your interview would be so much in advance. So you have enough time to check out about them, what have they been working on, so that you have some good questions that you can ask them. One of the key things I think that made sure I got my job at Amazon is that with one of the interviewers, I had a long drawn conversation about one problem that I knew they'd be working on, or one critique that I had about the product that they were working on, and it went on for another 15-20 minutes after the interviews. If the interviewer spends that kind of time with you and you bring out original ideas, well, that's definitely gonna be good for you. So I would recommend that you read up about it and see if you can have some opinion about what they're working on, and definitely do not critique it unless you've had experience like me where I was building something very similar. But you can definitely ask questions, why they did that, why they did this, and so on. So that's my bonus tip number 2. Now coming to the next set of rounds, which is your panel, or loop in the case of Amazon, where you'll have a long drawn interview process. Please don't be scared of this, but yeah, it will be long. So in the case of Yelp and Uber, I think it was 3 to 4 rounds. Amazon, it was 5 rounds. It was very, very tedious, and each of these were, Yelp was I think 30-35 minutes each round, so they were smaller, but Amazon was 1 hour. Sometimes they went for longer than that, so it was very hectic and it was a bit tiring for me. But once you go through them, you definitely come to the end of the tunnel. But anyway, talking about these rounds, so usually what happens is if you pass a screening round, then again the organizing committee would reach out to you and they'd ask you for a couple of dates, and then they will tell you that usually these panel rounds happen within a day, but you can break them down into 2 days as well. Now one tip here, break them down. So couple of things that are good about breaking them down is, and I broke them down in all of the interviews that I gave, is that it gives you time to really recuperate from all the effort that goes into speaking for so many hours, right? When you're interviewing, you are the one who's speaking so much. So maybe give yourself the rest. Plus all of the pressure of giving an interview after another, it just gets onto your head. So it's good to break it down. So usually you will break it down into 2 days, and those will be simultaneous days. So you'll not get a lot of time, but at least it will be sufficient for you to get a night's sleep and sort of recuperate for the next day. Since all of these rounds are preset, that means that one interview going bad doesn't impact the next one happening. The next one would surely happen, but if you've bombed one, most likely your chances of getting through are a bit minimal. Either you have really rocked all the others and bombed one, well, that's fine. In one of the cases that happened with me, I had done well in all the other rounds, but one I just bombed. I was lost, I just got confused, I don't know what happened, but I literally bombed one interview and I didn't get the final, I didn't get selected. So you have to make sure that you are there giving your 100%, and if you bomb one, well, mostly you'll not make it, because most of these panels, they are everyone should give a stamp on you, otherwise you'll have to argue with one another why you're so good. So if you've really rocked the others and bombed one, well, you still have a chance, but otherwise it's unlikely. So you get through these interviews, make sure that you follow my tip of asking for 2 simultaneous days rather than having it all in one day. The other thing is, when you're giving your slots, be a little bit generous. Give slots which are 1, 2, 3 weeks in advance, and actually I would say take the time to prepare yourself. There's enough content available per company. If not all companies, I don't think I had enough interview material available for Dropbox, for example, but there was enough for Uber and for Amazon. For Yelp as well, there was not enough, but there's enough on Reddit. You can ask questions on Reddit, or there are already questions being asked on Reddit, on Glassdoor. So use all of these platforms. Again, I've linked to them over here, some of the Reddit chats also that I refer to. But Reddit is such an amazing place, even Blind for that matter, is such a great place for you to ask questions or look at feedback from previous interviewers. So check that out, use that as a source so that you know what's coming up. And my final tip, the third tip, which is the most important thing, and I've said it oftentimes enough, make sure you do mocks before you sit for an interview. I can't stress on this enough, and I did mocks. I am, like I said, I have 7 years of experience and everything, but I still did give mocks because there's nothing better than doing that. And specifically for mocks, I'd say, like for example in Amazon, I gave it to an Amazonian because I know their interview process is different. Again, for Uber, I would say if you can find someone in Uber, that will be the best. Someone in Uber and someone in the same profile, or someone a little bit senior to you in that profile, that would be the most perfect thing. But at least if not Uber, at least find someone who's in the same or a higher profile, because those are the guys who are interviewing. They are the most, like for example, a friend of mine who's applying for a business operations role, I wouldn't be able to take the best mock interview for them, because I don't know exactly what skills are interviewed in those interviews, right? What are the thought process, the mental models of the people who interview for a business operations role. So I would recommend this friend to find someone who's a bit senior but in the same profile, for them to take the mock, because that's the way you'll get the best possible critique, right? So make sure that you get someone to mock interview you who is in the same profile, and hopefully, like probably if possible, in the same company. If you are someone who is interviewing currently and you are looking out for mocks, guys, I can help you. I can take your mock. There's a link in the section below which you can refer to and block some time with me, and I'll do a mock session with you. So anyway, that's my tip number 3, and that's about the entire process. After this, you'll be given a timeline by when they'll come back to you. In my case, the recruiter was so awesome that he blocked the date. Like, I had my last interview today. After the interview, everything was done. He called me up. He said, Aarushi, we'll know about your process by the end of next week. So I'm already blocking some time with you on this day, and that's when I'll tell you what happened. And that's the day when we had the call, when he told me that it's all great. So they're so on time. They're so great with the interview process. Like Amazon, I just had the best experience, but all the other companies are also mostly, you know, maybe they'll have a day or two of delay, but mostly they'll be on time. When they say they'll come back, they will come back on those timelines, and you will know by when. And they'll also tell you if you haven't made it. They'll also tell you that, like for example, in one of the cases where I did bomb, I was told that you have bombed. So, and I was also given the feedback, which I expected, that I had bombed one interview. So you'll get all the feedback and everything, but you'll be told, and that will be it. After that comes the negotiating round. I also did some negotiation in this process, on which I'll make another video next time if you ask for it in the comment section below. But that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one, and do share this video with your friends or with anyone else you think it will help, and like the content if you like the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-da!